I am so pleased to introduce Elizabeth Metzger-Sampson, who is a poet, essayist, and frequent collaborator with visual arts. She is the executive director of the Chicago Poetry Center, which organizes local roving readings and hires poets as teaching artists for poetry residents in Chicago public schools. She founded and edited Dear Navigator, an electronic experimental literary magazine for the School of the Art Institute of Chicago's MFA writing program. Her collaborative visual and written work have also been shown not only around Chicago, but around the world in places like Germany. It is a treat for us to welcome here today. Thank you to Gina Enck, Russ Anderson, the tech crew and boosters, and you for making that possible. Please join me in a round of applause for Beth Sampson.
Hi everyone, nice to see you. Happy fourth period and happy Friday. Is this right before lunch? Yeah, everyone's hungry. Well, I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you to all of the Fremd teachers and staff and all of the students who put this on together. This is just like such a cool thing that your school does. And I want to tell you a little bit about my personal history with Fremd. So, you might understandably think that that would be from when I was a teenager. This is me as a teenager. But I didn't go to high school at Fremd, and that is not from my story with Fremd. My story with Fremd is from when I was much younger, when I look like this. And as, oh, thank you. There we go. There's me. Okay, I'm going to show you. Teenager me, little kid me. There we go. And so, as you just heard, my dad was an English teacher and a speech coach at Fremd for many years. And when I was little, I would often accompany him to speech tournaments on Saturdays, which meant that I would spend the whole day hanging out with Fremd students. So I was a little kid, and the high schoolers were very sweet to me and would play with me and pay attention to me. And one of the really wonderful things that they would do is give me gifts sometimes. And I wanted to share with you today the best gift I ever received from a Fremd student, one of the best gifts I've ever received, period. This was handmade by a student at your school, the Beth jacket. So this was bedazzled for me in full sequins when I was in fourth grade, and I still have it. I will never get rid of this. It's just the greatest thing ever. So I have a long fandom of Fremd high school students, and that's my dad right over there. So, as you heard a little bit in that intro, my work is a whole bunch of different things, my creative work and my professional work. So what I thought I would do is just tell you a few of those things, tell you a little bit about my story overall, how I got to where I am, share a little bit of writing with you, and then talk to you about my professional work too, so that at the end of the hour, you can tell me what you want to hear more about from all of those things. So I went to school first at Columbia College here, then University of Iowa, and then I did my MFA at the School of the Art Institute. And when I was there, I was writing these like really dense, kind of murky poems about ships and bodies, and this is what they looked like. And I was also making visual artwork at the same time. So here's a slide from a show that I made at that time, where me and a collaborator made this like immersive environment out of felt. So it all looked like this picture here, floor to ceiling, felt room, everything surrounded in this. And then we had poetry readings in it as well. And so we would make the environment and then build other creative practices into that environment. I also like to collaborate where I'm the writer and someone else is doing the visual artwork. So here's a painting from a collaborative piece that I did with my mom, where I wrote a poem and she did a painting for a show. And here's the magazine that you heard mentioned earlier. So right after grad school, I started a magazine for the School of the Art Institute. This is a mock-up of the first issue. This issue had Juno Diaz and Eula Biss, Eleni Siklianos, and Ann Carson in it. And we created a reading series to go along with it too. This is kind of always a theme in this work, is I'll sort of make one thing and then find another way to put live performance into it. So whether it's a gallery show and having readings at it, or an online magazine and then we create a reading series from it, always making sure that you have those different points of access to it. And then another big change right after grad school, I moved to Cairo. And this was in 2011, which was the early days of the Egyptian Revolution. This was not my plan. I was not intending to move into the middle of another country's revolution. But I did arrive right in time for it. And this is a photo I took from the roof of a building of my friend Yasmina. And she is documenting the protest below with her camera. This was obviously a really interesting time where I learned a great deal, and it was just a really amazing space of learning and creativity and growth. And while I was there, I taught a lot of artist workshops for combinations of artists and writers. So this image is from a workshop called Radical Mapping, Mapping as Artistic Practice. We would walk through Cairo and listen to the city and think about all the different ways that you can make a map. So we made audio maps, visual maps, written maps, and we looked at all sorts of interesting maps, because you can map anything. And you can map it any way you want to. So it's a really broad area for creativity and a nice creative prompt too if you're feeling a little stuck. And I also taught workshops outside of the city. So this is one from St. Catherine, Sinai. And this was in the mountains and the valleys out there, and focused on using our sense of place to make work. So kind of grounding into where we are for informing our writing or creative practice. And in general, Cairo was just a place of learning for me, and I was really lucky to be a young person who got to experience the full paradigm shift of another culture. And then I moved back. That sort of starts the nowish time. And when I moved back, I thought, I'm interested in all these different types of writing and art and engagement with my practice. Why not just try to do them all at the same time? So I'll give you a little tour of some of the types of writing that I would do before I read you some poems. So I began to write essays about artists and art reviews like this one. This was about 2 shows at a gallery by 2 different artists. But because I like to link things together, this essay is also about the history of labor movements and women's suffrage, and also the board game Monopoly. And this is something that I wrote for the Poetry Foundation. And one part of my work, in my professional work, is writing and speaking about creativity. And this article is for educators, specifically discussing ways to make poetry exciting and relevant in any classroom. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this Chicago Poetry Center work a little later. And I started to write both personal essays and social issue essays. And this was one that was both serious and a little bit goofy at the same time. Where, this was back in 2016 emoji land, and the emojis available then just weren't what they are now. And so this was a call for a greater diversity of emojis. And, it's a little bit silly, but it's also serious. And I really like to make work that does both of those things together, because social issue work can be heavy, and we should also be able to enjoy ourselves while we do that work. I also at this time got to work on a poetry manuscript. So these poems that I'm gonna read to you, I think of them as these like strange little creatures. They're like a little bit witchy. They came out of spending a lot of time with the work of others. So visual artists, musicians, dancers, and kind of letting their creations build up this strange creation of my own. And you'll hear in these sort of two worlds, the world of these artworks, but also the world of this like creature that's coming into being. And I picked these 4 because they're the start, so you kind of get the story of this thing forming. And you'll see while I'm reading these, the artworks that inspired them too, and I'll tell you who the artists are as we go along. All of the artworks mentioned in this piece are by Andrew Yang, and they are all from his MCA show, his recent MCA show. An expanding point in time and space. Slow drift the city, and we reach the museum. My friends, the lovers, are in town for a visit, and today we amble easy. Many mounds of sand are representing the stars in our galaxy. And I ask the lovers, this is just our galaxy, right? There are more galaxies? The artist has laid out a table of objects, too. Conch shells, rocks, minerals people hold for magic. It looks straightforward, but collapses upon inspection. Some items are what they purported to be. Others stop being natural as you approach them. Atoms shape-shifting at different distances. Styrofoam, trash, ancient rock. From each angle, the table shifts. And behind it, the artist has mounted to the wall another metaphor of our carbon-based wonder, his daughter's weight and ratio of the basic elements she contains. Oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, reconstituted from girl into shell, water, sugar, and glass. She could be this too. My amble hasn't been easy, not lately. What is the shape of my universe? Black hole rising. In the uncertainty, I grasp for shapes and rules. I imagine a creature formless in the woods. I'm trying to understand her atomic structure, the outline and configuration of her. My friends say if I'm quiet and patient, the creature will show herself like a story. I will sit and wait for sense to take shape. I wonder where to train my eyes. Is she scuttling below leaf blankets on the forest floor or skyward? And then I can answer the question myself. She'd have a nest, of course, protected in a tree, massive and made of terrifying things, gazelle bones and human hair. The artist and the universe made his daughter into her miraculous and chaotic molecular structure, and here he whispers to the rest of us how bizarre that fate is. She could be a shell. He remakes her in chaos. Out of chaos, I ask for my creature, will you come? If I summon you with the right meats and gems, I crave her demands, a rule or a sign, an omen or a totem. I am hungry for a guide, any kind of outline. In the next seat over, the lovers build their love and learn of space. They build and test their rules, the shape of their home. I take a photo of the daughter as shells and water and sit behind the lovers, my friends, watching a movie about space. All that is there, infinity and containment. My friends tell me that the universe did not begin in a place. Space is infinite and contained to the universe. Time is what expands. All time is radiating out from the center of time at the starting point of the universe. I believe a point can be in time and space, yes? I think I got that right. Which is the point in time when the lovers meet and know something inexpressible? Which is the point when the daughter forms, hair and skin, and then is reformed, shell and water and air? When was my creature formed, and how is she shifting? There is a point in time in which I lay out an altar and summon her, trash and gemstones, meat and styrofoam shape of meat, water from a mountain rise, to put water back in its shape. Thank you. And in this one, there's two makers mentioned. The artwork you'll see is by Anna Mendieta, and it's her work called Body Tracks. And the writer mentioned is Banu Kapil, and a book of hers called Incubation, A Space for Monsters. Coursing. I use my hands to learn my creature, the shape of things becoming. I petition her in flicks of the wrist. I ask the air what might summon her. I recall a woman pulling the color red down a wall, palms rust-soaked, her desire drags earthbound. I am building an altar to my creature. The image of the woman smearing crimson will entice her, show her I understand. I remember now this same woman who made the book. She asked me to lay down once in the road. It was a shift change. I changed when I did it. Everything shifted, just so, with me upon making her instruction. How this changed me. The way the sky opened, vibrating the deepest blue until I atomized into it, a brief and gaping infinity inside the morning twilight. And in this one, so the image that you'll see is of a dancer named Ramita Ravi. And it's a screenshot from her performance on So You Think You Can Dance. And the poem was inspired by her performance on So You Think You Can Dance, but it was also inspired by something really weird that one of the judges said to her during the critique. So you will hear what the judge said to her in the poem. Articulation. My creature will hold language in her limbs, extension and isolation, more first language than language. If a person speaks fluently, perhaps originally, in a tongue that is sound or body, rhythm or image, what becomes of them in the world? A dancer articulates each outstretched finger, curls into and out of her own body. We breathe with her, gasp with her. At night, I watch a show where the dancers gather to be judged. A dancer finishes her utterance and one judge says to her, I love those hands. I want them. For a day, I wander about imagining the judge taking ownership of the woman's hands, keeping them somewhere safe, a glass presentation box, taking them out when it's late and quiet, sliding off her own hands in one smooth motion like a ring into a jewelry box, next lifting up the dancer's hands, trying them on her own two arms. If the dancer is captured in English, can she free herself in another language? Will her bones hide her from the wanton judges? If a dancer's first language is elocution, and she has 3 judges who may steal one beautiful piece of her, the farthest extension of her reach in her own tongue, when do we wreck the judges? The last of these weird little poems I'm going to share with you today. In this one, 2 artists. The first one is Bassem Magdi, and the next is, again, Andrew Yang, both from the MCA. A tidier galactic home for your pulsing heart. We are building, always. Back in the city, my friend and I go to the museum. A tulip with a face says, "Do not create anything. Others will use it and make it worse." I ask my friend to walk upstairs to the space show. I want her to see all these pieces of translation, stars as sand and daughters as shells. We climb and I start to spin out some recent chaos of mine. You know when you're so... I pause to collect myself. I can't stop saying you when I mean me. Upstairs, the artist is present, last day of the exhibition. The artist pushes a broom across the space, sweeping up star remnants of the sand galaxy deposited here. We take in the translation in 3 dimensions. Internalized, it fractals, and the stars mean me, and the carbon means you, and it grows until everything translates to everything. Memory is the 4th dimension and every one after. My memories are, of course, false, and the only universe I can make. Carnage and teeth, gloss and zero gravity. What happens when you lose control of your universe? Is there a better way to make it? A tidier galactic home for your pulsing heart? Each one of us carries them about and makes the known world float. Little everythings constructed out of the flimsiest of materials, recollection and rolling waves on a wide plain. Thanks. Thank you for letting me share those. I figured I'll take us on another pivot and talk to you about my professional work and how it ties into my creative practice. Also, I figured some of you might have questions about different jobs in the creative field and like what sounds fun, what sounds just plain hard, what sounds hard but rewarding. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I do in that work too. And then again, at the end, you let me know what you have questions about, and that's what we'll talk about. So as you already heard, I'm the executive director at the Chicago Poetry Center, and we do 3 main things. We do education programs with poetry, program we call Literary Life, and then critical conversations. And what's interesting in each of these pieces of our work is that the work requires creativity in how we work and how we build the programs, and then the work itself is also championing creativity in a variety of ways. So in critical conversations, we use poetry to have challenging and important conversations regarding racism. And this program has mostly been utilized with adults in different workplaces and organizational settings, but I think the program would be exactly the same with teens. And those are our co-creators in the top left of that slide there, 2 poets themselves, Marty McConnell and Greg Geoffroy. And one of the things I'm really proud of with this program is that it uses contemporary local poets' own stories and poetry to start the conversation, and then it pays royalties to those poets every time we use their work, because we do believe that writers who have shared stories of trauma and resilience should be compensated for that labor. And in our Literary Life programs, which is our public readings and workshops, we rove around the city and we're in all sorts of environments, and we just try to make public performance as engaging and exciting and surprising as we can. So here's photos from a few different interesting locations we've been at. This is Pegasus Award-winning poet Ed Roberson reading at the Garfield Park Conservatory. And this is Aaron Coleman reading on the Chicago water taxi on the river. We take the water taxi down the river from downtown to Ping Tom Park. And it basically happens all along the river and then in the park afterwards. And this was a collaborative performance between dancers and poets that they co-created together. This was done by CPC along with Chicago Dance Theater Ensemble. And then In our education work, we do long-term poetry residencies with students from as young as second grade all the way up to 12th grade. And of course, those look a little different from age to age, but honestly, I don't think writing changes a whole ton as we get older at any age. A writing workshop is a writing workshop. But I thought I would show you all some videos and share some student poems with you. So on to our students. If I can make it play. It played perfectly last time. No? Let me see if I exit this. Do a little test of the system here. Let's see. Maybe I won't show you this video. Let me see if I can just find it for you really quickly. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Oh, maybe it'll play. Thank you. I can feel the support. I would also like to say for the record, multiple teachers here know this video played perfectly well from the slideshow 1 hour ago. Let's see. Okay, let me see if I'm quick enough to pull this up for you. Well, we'll let that load for a second, come back to it. And if I can show you these kiddos, I will. Right now, you get to enjoy my desktop. Oh, there it is. That's the video I want, right there. Oh, and now it's loading everywhere. I think this was an internet issue. Okay, I think we're back online. Fingers crossed. Maybe I spoke too soon. What? I know. I was so confident there. All right, we'll come back to her. Hopefully we'll get to her. So let me just read you some poems in the interim. Here we go. So this is one of our youngest student poets, a second grader. And part of what I love about this poem is that it was written by a second grader, but it sounds like it was written by Emily Dickinson. And I also want to make sure you know that she provided the artwork for this poem as well. My friend's secret. I was told a secret a whisper can be. It felt golden underneath the truth of such a thing. I won't tell such a thing. Oh no. Why would it be through many years of sorriness, of happiness, of nothing? Oh no. Thanks to Rebecca for that poem. And then I was hoping if one of you are able to read the screen, if I might have a volunteer to read Elijah's poem on the left here, just so all of the students in our program don't sound exactly like me. So any volunteers? Anybody read a poem? Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And can we get a volunteer to read Amaya? Yes. Thank you. That was great. Thank you both for your help. Okay, so before I show you the next student poem, I want to set it up a little bit. So we sometimes get poems that just like totally crack us up from our youngest students, and they can both be really silly, but also show us a lot of learning by the young people in the room too. And this poem was prompted by a William Carlos Williams poem, This Is Just to Say. So just raise your hand if you're familiar with this poem, This Is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams. A few of you, great. And if you don't know it, in summary, it's a really short poem that is meant to be like a note posted on a refrigerator door that basically says, hey, I ate the plums that I know you wanted to eat for breakfast. Sorry, not sorry. They tasted really good. That's the whole poem. And one of our poets in residence was prompting their students to write from the other side of it, right? What if you're the person who received that note that somebody ate your plums? So he asked them to write a poem from the perspective of a prized possession of yours has been stolen or gone missing. How do you respond? And this is what one of our youngest poets wrote. Stole tiger. If someone stole my tiger, I will freak. I will put flyers everywhere. Then someone told me who it was. It was William Carlos Williams. He said he killed my tiger, so I killed him. I know it sounds a little violent towards William Carlos Williams, but I want to assure you that he's fine because he's already dead. So he's at no risk of any physical threat from this young student poet. Okay, so let's see if this next video works. We're gonna try. Cross your fingers. I think this one's gonna work. So I'll cue this up for you since I know it's gonna play. This is a wonderful poet on our team reading one of his students' poems and talking about it for a moment. So now you get to hear from some of our older students in the program.
This is a poem by one of my students, Jesus. The writing prompt was, life is a game. And if life is a game, how you win or lose it, it's the rules, it's the board. They kind of have to explain that. This is the poem I can teach you. Life is like a game. Are we winning when we have more people in jail than anyone? When we run prisons that make money off of people who need help, not punishment? A system that makes you lose even when you want to do the best you can? Or why do we even need that when someone or something is right behind you, controlling your life, your every step is controlled and watched? Because in someone's eyes, you are not a person, but a series of numbers. What I like about this poem is how he took something that's very, very real in his own life, particularly in his neighborhood. A lot of people are always going to prisons, going to jails, in particular Chicago. So I really like how he took this idea of like life in the game and he really explained that metaphor into something that's very personal for himself and for his family. And yet he poses great questions, right? Like, how could we be winning if this thing is happening in the world? And he could particularly chose to talk about something that is very hard to talk about, something that's not talked about a lot, and obviously that he can talk about more often. So.
And then we're gonna see if one final video wants to play. I think maybe it's an internet issue because I think that was the embedded video. So I think the ones that are linked don't want to play right now. But So you might just get to see a screenshot, and I'll tell you about it. So this is Queen Z, aka Leslie Reese. Leslie Reese is a wonderful poet in residence on our team. And this year, a new skill I learned on the job is figuring out how to be an executive producer, because we created a streaming web series of poetry videos for young people. We wanted them to be inspired by the PBS shows that we loved when we were little, that were like super creative and educational at the same time, and you didn't always even notice that you were learning because you were having so much fun. And so Leslie Reese transformed into Queen Z, and we created Queen Z's Poetic Adventures. So I don't think I can show you the trailer right now, unfortunately, because it doesn't want to load. But if you are ever curious to watch it, you can always go to poetrycenter.org, and all of these videos are on there. So feel free to. Yeah? Oh, great. It's just not responding. Yeah. Sure. Okay, I think we might have a fix. Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing.
These two. And then. Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm a people pleaser. Anything to be useful.
And then, is there a jack on
Yeah.
there? Great. It might be like loud for a second when that jack goes
Yeah,
in.
can you turn the volume down? Oh, it's in front. We're good? Yep. All right, go ahead. Oh, come on. Yeah. There we go. I've got the other one too in another tab if you want.
Awesome, thank you.
How about we take a little poetic adventure? How you doing, Lloyd? I am so glad to see you too. This is Lloyd. We want to write our own poems, recipe poems, identity poems. Please pause the video so that you can brainstorm some names for your own monster. Take a moment to pause the video to write your own poem. One thing that always gets the brain moving, wiggling around like a noodle. This is Face It by Janet S. Wong. We want warm corners and fresh open spaces. I am a jack-o'-lantern with terrible teeth, and the children know I'm fooling. Building blocks of the poem. There's no right answer. Just write what you feel. Poetry is like art class with words. Whoa! That was so much fun. I can't wait to hear your poems.
Thank you for the video sub-in. Oh. Thank you. And we have just a few minutes left, so let's just see if there's a couple questions before we've got to go. Yeah. Yeah, I missed the end of it, but I think you were just asking like where and do I publish and stuff. Yeah, just like different online spaces, different journals, and I guess, you know, if the bigger question maybe is thinking about like where I think about or like how I think about where I want to publish, what I always try to do is read journals to see like what's exciting to me, you know, and which are the journals where like I read it and I'm like, oh, I want to be in that journal, you know, like I like that writing in there, and to really just submit to those places because there's like an infinity of places to publish, you know? And it really just, I think there's like no point in trying to play. Like if you read the other stuff in it and you're like, that's cool, like this place is esteemed, but like it doesn't match anything I'm doing, then it just doesn't matter. Like just find the place you're really excited about, and that's gonna keep connecting you to other writers and makers who are gonna kind of keep building with you and potentially become great, you know, collaborators or partners. Yeah. It was a very humbling experience, you know, like being in a completely different culture, learning a new language. It taught me how much like I didn't know and what an infinity of possibilities there were in the world. And so for me, it was this really, this like opening time of just learning and so much possibility. And I think it really, like what it taught me first and foremost was just to like know what I don't know, if that makes sense, and trust, you know, how much not knowing there is in the world. I always felt like in school there was this sense of like, you're becoming an expert in all these things, and then you reach this like expert level and you like know everything now, right? And for me, that experience was like, okay, that's just totally wrong. And you're just gonna be learning and, you know, finding yourself in different situations and experiences forever, or hopefully, right? Because I think, you know, life gets a little less interesting if we've reached a point where we stop learning and we think we know everything too. Let's see, I think we have time for another question. One more question? I think we might be there. Yeah? Are you all good? Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much. I'm really grateful for your time. It's great to be here. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you so much. No problem. This was such a great help.